Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity. I've been coming to Switzerland for 15 years, and I've been giving presentations at the Doctor Summit for pretty much that time. And I was always, in the beginning, I was very nervous, and I tell you, I'm still nervous because I'm talking to some of the best clinicians in the world, and it's always a privilege, and it's a humbling experience. Today is not about strategy. Dani asked me to give him a personal story of how I transitioned from a doctor to a CEO. And so are there any similarities between being a doctor and a CEO? What are the similarities? What are the differences? What would a journey like that look like? Now, my journey was a very unique one because it wasn't premeditated. It wasn't planned. It was, I had to be a doctor, and then I had to be a patient, and then start a whole new career. So I'll tell you a little bit about that, and hopefully there are some interesting and helpful thoughts amongst what I'm going to share with you. So I'll divide it up into four quickly. My life as a doctor, my life as a patient, my life as a CEO, and some parting thoughts. Firstly, I studied medicine in South Africa. I come from South Africa. I was born in Namibia. And I went to the army. We had to go to the army in those days. And I was promptly positioned in a war zone on the border between Namibia and Angola. And there I learned, as a young doctor, to deal with very serious cases with almost no resources. An incredibly important and strong lesson to learn, and also quite scary, to be quite honest. I then went on and decided my journey in life would be to help people at the point where they can't help themselves. So I wanted to do something, work with seriously ill people. I decided anesthesia and intensive care was what I would love to do. I specialized in Johannesburg at Wits University. And one of the highlights of that was I worked in a place called Baragwanath Hospital, which you might all know. It's now called Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital. It's the third largest hospital in the world, south side of Johannesburg, catering for a township called Soweto with 3 million people. This hospital has 3,200 beds. It's spread over 429 buildings on 70 square kilometers. That's how big it is. You do your ward rounds with your car. That's how big it is. 350 patients a day through the emergency center, a day. 5 gunshots a day to theater. 150 births a day. I frequently did a 16-hour shift, and I did an anesthetic, a cesarean anesthetic every hour, 16 in a row. Quite interesting experience. So I had a very intense experience doing serious work almost by myself, because at night it's too dangerous for people to come and help you if you have a problem. Also did numerous mercy flights out of Africa, south of the Sahara, fetching patients into Johannesburg with aeroplanes, trauma patients, gunshots, cerebral malaria, car crashes, brain injuries, things like that, myocardial infarcts. So a lot of serious injuries with very few resources. And that shaped my thinking, it shaped my career. I finished anesthesia, I got a medal. It was the best candidate for the year in South Africa in anesthesia. So I thought, this is fantastic. I didn't even think it would ever happen. And I then went into practice, and I was regarded as a very difficult doctor by hospital administrators and sometimes even the nursing staff. And the reason for that was possibly that I demanded the highest standards. I was really very particular about my patients. And that was regarded and experienced as being difficult, and I think many of you have had the same experience over time. And it's easy for me to talk about it. But I always thought, why is it that, what distinguishes a doctor from a good doctor, or a good doctor from a doctor, or an excellent doctor from just a normal doctor? And I listed a couple of things there, and I think it's the discipline. The discipline of being top of your game at all times. The discipline is a continuous thing. Also, the methodical approach. You have to go through things in a specific way, no shortcuts. self-reliance. All of this is about yourself. You have to make the decisions, and you have to make them quickly with your patients, and also in regards to your patients. Sense of urgency or a high index of suspicion. In other words, you walk into the ICU, it may be sure, and it might be very subtle things that you might miss. That urgency and the high index of suspicion, and obviously resilience is something that we have to do. It's tough to be a specifically successful doctor in a very busy practice. It's a tough and demanding job, no doubt about it. And I experienced that when I was in private practice, where I was in a regional town doing anesthesia and intensive care. I had a chronic pain management clinic as well, one of the first ones in South Africa. And I worked very hard, but it was very tough. And if I didn't organize myself very well, it was going to be a failure. I know I resonate with many of you because you all have very busy practices, and you are functioning at a very high level. So I'm not saying anything that you don't know already. I'm just reminding you. So that to me is what sets doctors apart from the ordinary. Then in my practice, I unfortunately, after a year or so of this very successful practice, I was involved in a boating accident. A boat ran over me in a river. Propeller injuries of the left arm and the left flank. So for those of you who want to know the details, 6 open fractures, lost all my flexor muscles, the ulnar and the median nerve, my left arm, and the brachial artery was off in many places, and also about 9 deep cuts down my left flank, into my hip, into my pelvic bone, on this river. I told my family and my friends what to do. Tourniquet, pressure, all of those things. The ambulance crew that fetched me was clueless. Took me to my own hospital. My own colleagues were very supportive. They said they will deal with this. I said, no, I will want to go to the best trauma unit in South Africa, 70 kilometers away by helicopter. They respected my wish. The helicopter saved my life. I landed on an HB of 3 and a systolic pressure of 60. That was the beginning of a whole process. I received 11 units of blood. I clocked up 9 theater sessions, 34 hours of anesthetic time, repairing everything again and putting nerves from my legs into my arm and swing extensor muscles to get the grip again. So that was a long, arduous journey as a patient. All of a sudden, it was very scary. What did I learn? I learned that you have this overwhelming sense of helplessness, vulnerability. You lose your dignity completely, and you become very lonely, very uncertain, frightened, fearful. And obviously, many patients find resilience in that, some not. But what was really important was to trust the team looking after me. I had the desperate need to trust the team because I knew what was happening with me. How do you do that as a doctor or as a team? And I'm talking from a patient now. The first one is connect with the patient. You can't talk about the patient as if the patient is not there. That doesn't really help. So connect and reassure. That's probably the most important thing. And then as a team, the confidence, portraying the confidence. We know what we're doing, you're going to be okay. To me, that was absolutely fantastic. And that's what that team did. Obviously, many of them knew me, and they did put the extra mile in. But incredibly important message. The second thing was that I felt that I had to coordinate my own rescue. And if it wasn't for the fact that I had a lot of experience in trauma, I would not have survived. And I thought, other people shouldn't be in this position. Non-medical people shouldn't die because they're not doctors. It's not supposed to. The world is not supposed to be a place where you have to be a doctor in order to survive a car crash or whatever happens to you. So that became my purpose. Wherever I work, wherever I can have any influence, is to make sure that people have the best possible chance of surviving by building up healthcare systems. Now, in Switzerland, the system is functioning at that level. In other countries like India, it might be there. In South Africa, it might be there. Dubai, it might be there. But all of it is very relevant, and it's all related to where we are and how we do these things. So that became my mission, basically, and that's driving me every single day, is to make that difference, to create that system, and to make a difference in the world. So that's as far as patients concerned. Then I had to find myself another job because I couldn't do anesthesia anymore. Now I have 15% function in this hand. I think it's a fantastic outcome because if I landed at the long hands, I would probably have died or have the arm amputated. So, fantastic. Second chance in life, no problem, but I didn't have a job. So I started looking around, found a job in the health insurance industry as a manager. And I realized on day one, I'm going to have to eat a lot of humble pie in order to survive here, because I thought I was top of the world, anesthesiologist. I knew exactly what was going on. People respected me. And now I was just a hired hand, and they said, well, we don't really care what kind of qualifications you have. You're going to have to do this and this for us. And that gradually, I had to start all over again, learn new things. What I learned was, a lot of the things I showed you 2 slides ago were very important building blocks to become successful as a manager and then also as a leader later on in life. And so health insurance, data management, spent a bit of time in the United States, back to being employed by Mediclinic for 22 years now, doing all sorts of things, being responsible for all sorts of aspects of the business, especially the ambulance business. We have 400 ambulances on the road in South Africa, made sure that what happened to me would not happen to somebody else. Our ambulance teams are really top-notch. They know exactly what they're doing. Makes a big impact in South Africa. So all of those things, very important. And I built up over time, and I developed a whole new career. But I had to learn a whole lot of new skills. So important decisions. So obviously it's important when you're a physician, one-on-one relationship to make the best possible decisions for your patients. What I realized as a leader is now I need to make decisions that impact on potentially thousands of patients and thousands of staff members and thousands of doctors. So we don't want to make stupid decisions up there in the ivory tower that will really adversely affect a whole lot of people over time. That kind of decision-making weighs very heavily on a CEO of a busy, large organization. And my role is not dissimilar to Dani's role. It's just, the scope is a little different, but the principles are the same. Now I need to rely on people. We need to make big decisions. I rely on people to tell me, to give me the information. I can't go and do it all by myself. So you learn how to really work in a team, how to trust people blindly in order to make those big decisions. Selflessness, because as a leader, it's not about you, it's now about the people. It's not about me. I'm just temporarily, for a few years, represent the CEO position of the company. It's not about me. I'm sitting in business class at the moment. The day I retire, I'm going to be sitting in economy class. It has nothing to do with me. It's about the people. The people look at the leader and they say, I can forget what you said and what you did, but I will never forget how you made me feel. So as a leader, you only have one chance. If you make somebody feel stupid, that's it. They will not respect you any longer. So there's no second chances. Continuous improvement. There's always ways to improve. And we need to always tell the staff and our people and challenge our people, make them think in different ways. Patience, incredible patience. We talked about it last night at the table, talked about clinical outcomes. The urologists talk about that. Very good suggestions there. And I thought, we've been talking about this for 15 years. The patience of getting these things going is really, for me, it's something I had to learn because I want something to be done right now. And then resilience, obviously. Resilience is one of those factors that you see in every single one of my slides. So what are all these lessons learned? I think firstly, just in terms of doctor versus CEO, doctors, instant gratification. You have your list, you do your cases, tomorrow you see the patients, they're much better. You go home, you feel very good. I don't have that anymore. I have an endless to-do list that doesn't ever get any shorter. And every week, Inge and I speak for 45 minutes, and her list is this long, my list is this long, and it doesn't get any better. So there's no instant gratification. The other thing that I learned is it's incredibly important to know how big a privilege it is to be a doctor or a nurse. Patients come to you, they put their entire trust in you, their entire life. They spill all the beans, they tell you everything about themselves, and they trust that you will make the right decisions to get them better. It's an incredible privilege. So sometimes I hear doctors complain about their practices and that it's sort of boring and things like that. And I say, really, you should really just remind yourself of that privilege. And then on this slide, just quickly, there are a few things that I've learned. You'll see them. There's 6 of them. Collaboration is important. Communication is important. Improvement I talked about. But resilience is the one I wanted to just point out. Resilience is incredibly important in all walks of life. Being a successful doctor, a successful CEO, whatever it is you do, resilience is incredibly important. Never lose your compassion for your patients and for your staff, your fellow staff members, people who really work incredibly hard, especially during COVID. And then lastly, find your purpose. We have a purpose for Mediclinic, to enhance the quality of life. That's what drives our people forward. That's what gets them out of bed in the mornings. But I also have a personal purpose. It's very closely aligned with that of Mediclinic, but it even goes a little bit further. And I explained that to you a few minutes ago. So find your purpose, and that's the kind of things that makes life worth living. It makes you happy. Talked about happiness just now. By having a purpose and living that purpose really is incredibly satisfying. And a purpose can never be, I want to make as much money as I can. That's not really what it's all about. Anyway, thank you very much. I hope there were a couple of nuggets of interesting thoughts and ideas in my story that I shared with you. I want to say one thing. I know I'm in question time now. I'm over my time. But I want to quickly make one point. This is a doctor summit. A company like Mediclinic has a couple of critical success factors that if you don't have those things and nurture them, the company will not succeed over time. One of them, and obviously it's incredibly important for a CEO to understand those things. It's subtle things. One of them is our ability. It's probably the number one critical success factor. Our ability to attract, and he knows what I'm going to say, attract and retain the best possible doctors to work with us as partners, whether we employ our doctors or whether we have them as partners in independent practices, doesn't matter. It's the most important critical success factor. And all I wanted to tell, why I'm saying this to you is you know that we know this. And you can be satisfied that we know how important you are and what your roles are, and that we need to empower you, not only to want to work for Hirslanden and for Mediclinic, but also to empower you to run very, very successful practices and being satisfied with how you do that. Thank you. Thank you very much.